Hi guys, so what we're going to be looking at today is tracing objects such as this. It's quite a flat object, so it's quite easy to trace, but getting it to scale and actually how you can use different items to actually scale your object. For instance, this one, the only thing that I know the scale of on this object itself is the actual holes here, the bolt holes. So that's an M7, these two are M5, so 7mm, 5mm, 5mm. So that's the only thing that I know this is on scale. And also you can see it's an angle, so we're going to show you how to trace this. If you're looking at other ways to scale the image to actually have the actual scale there, so if you drop a penny or something on there that you know the size of, so this is a UK 50p, which I don't know the size of, so I'll have to Google the size of. I think it's something like 27mm perhaps. So we can drop that on, then actually use that to scale. So we'll be using that as well. We've also got, obviously, the ruler would come in handy, so we can just chuck that on there and use that. It doesn't matter where you place it, but that can be used to scale. And you get when you go onto a site and you look up certain fixtures and fittings on the site, you may end up with a scale down the bottom. So that's a perfect reference to scale there. And we're going to be showing you actually how to use those in FreeCAD. So this one is for more flat objects. What we'll do is do another video for something that's a bit more complex, and we'll go through that. So we're going to start with a new document. So hit create new, and I want the image workbench. So we'll be placing the image actually in our image workbench. Now we've got 3 items that come up on our toolbar here. We've got the open image view, and what this does is that we can use this just to open the images to have a look at them and keep them in our project as separate windows. So let me show you that. So if I open up the no scale one, and we can fit screen here, so you can actually see red, green, blue coming up, the XY coordinates, and how far that's zoomed in. That just places the image as a tab there. So that's good, just good for reference. It's not actually in the project as of yet. To actually get the image in the project, we'll actually use this, create a planar image in the 3D space. Now I'm going to load in each one of these and show you actually how to scale that image. So to actually create an object, we need this image to scale. So that's pulling in that no scale image. So this hasn't got any scale in, but we know that the actual holes, we know the sizes of. So I'm going to put it on the XY plane, OK that. So that's the image plane at the moment. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click that, and I can actually move the image plane. So I'm just going to use my page down and page up to zoom in and out. So I can actually move that there if I so desire around the screen. Okay, that. So I have the ruler here, so I can actually go and see parts of this image, how wide they are. So distance 3.1 millimeters. So I know this isn't in scale. So I know for a fact that that hole there, this hole here, is 7 millimeters wide. Sorry, in diameter. So let's fix that. Let's delete our distance. And what I'm going to do is use the scale and image plane by defining a distance between 2 points. So click on this where a little window appears. It's asking us to select the first point. So I'm going to select a point in here. Don't worry about the line that's just appeared, because when you start moving you'll get another line. There we go. So from here to here is where we're going to use this as a scale reference. So click on there. So we've selected what we want to scale to. Now we're setting our scale here, so I know that's going to be 7 millimeters. So you can hit 7 millimeters in there, and then hit OK, and it's asking us to select the image plane. Because we can load multiple images in here, if we've got something like a more 3D image, then we have to actually select one of the images to scale. So I'm selecting that image plane there, hit OK, and now that should be to scale. Now I'm just going to click on the image and use my page up and page down to zoom in, and we're now going to measure this. So hit on the measure distance, and what we should see is that's saying 7.2. That's because we're slightly over, but that is 7mm, and that will do for the time being. We can be more accurate with our scaling if we so desire and get closer in there. 6.97, so yeah, it's about 7mm. You can do the scaling more than once, obviously. So if I want to just redo this, I just select on the scale, select a point, and select another point, and actually put 7mm in there. Image plane, and OK that, and using my page up and page down to zoom in, should be able to check the distance between those 2 points, 7.1. So that's 7mm. So, and we know that this one should be 5 as well, so we can check that as well there. So it's 5.6 and slightly over. Get rid of that distance, just do that again. Come into about there, 5.3, so that's around about 5. Just gets you in the ballpark there, depending on how accurate your scaling was when you actually tried to do your scaling in the first place. I mean, they talked about 0.1 of a millimeter, you know, 0.3, 0.1 over here, but it's to scale now. That the scale I'm happy with. If you've got something different, so what I'm going to do is just hide that image plane and actually load in another one. So say I've got something like with the ruler or the object. Let's open that one. Yep. So image plane 2 here, I can rename these. So it's got 50p reference. Do. Now with that, I can actually do the same. I can actually zoom in and scale to this 50p. So at the moment, this 50p is 124.45, and what I'm going to do is just quickly Google the size of a 50p piece. 27.5mm of 50p pieces. So we just scale that. Select the first point. So I'm going to yeah, I can go the same there to there, and do 27.5. Select the 50p reference. You can see our old distance is still there, so we can actually get rid of that. And if we zoom in, we can actually then measure distance here, 7.01. So that's perfect. So that's how to use the 50p reference there, or a penny or something, whatever your currency is that you want to use. Let me just load in another one. So let's get rid of that one. And let's have a look at the one with the ruler. XY plane, okay. So obviously this one will be the same process. But this time we've got a nice scale here, so we know that's this is a centimetre ruler, isn't it? Yeah, a centimetre ruler. So we know from there to there is a centimetre, or from there to there is a centimetre, 10 mil. So we can actually just scale that. This one's actually quite nice and accurate because we've got a nice scale to use, and that is 10 mil. Select the image, okay that, and we should have yeah, 6.94. So that's close enough for me. So that's great. It's only one of those are in scale. And we can use whatever one of those we want to actually do our tracing on our image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start tracing this image. So I'm going to start new, and I'm going to jump into the image plane, pull in my image, and I'm going to go for the no scale one, the XY plane. I'm going to set my scale from a reference on this actual object, so this 7mm hole. So hit the scale, distance there to there, and I'm going to say, I'm going to actually come in a bit more. That'll do. So that's 7mm. Select the image plane, OK that. So that's all set. Now, what I want to do is actually view the toggle axis cross, and that will come in handy in a minute, because I want to straighten this image up, and I want to actually have this as straight as possible so I can actually work on it in my sketch. So now I am going to jump over to my sketch. So I'm going to go into the sketcher and then create a sketch, and I've got the image plane selected, so it's going to put it on the same object, on same axis on there. So if we look at this now, we've got our object is not in line with this axis, so I want to actually place a straight side against one of these axes. And to do that, we leave our sketcher open, go over to the model. You can see the sketch is actually highlighted in yellow. So if we click on our image plane, so we've got these properties of this image plane that's come up. Go over to data. Now you've got the placement there and the angle. So we're going to just change the angle of this, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to make things a lot faster. Up and down arrow keys. And also I'm going to change the placement, so I want to align this straight edge to this line here. So click on the image plane, and we're going to go to the position, and we're going to change the Y. What I'm going to do is click and page up and page down to zoom in, and I'm just going to align this image on the Y. That was good. That's about right. Also, if you look at your sketch lines, you can line up some of the lines with parts that you know that are in line. So this is in line with the top of these holes there. So I'm quite happy with the alignment of that sketch. Now I can start tracing the sketch. Now when you start tracing, how I like to actually start is by doing the easy parts first. So these holes I'll actually do, and then I'll look for shapes rather than drawing a whole polyline around this using the polyline tool, and then start filleting off the sides. I will actually create slot geometry in here, circle geometry, and use square geometry to actually surround this. Something that's a bit more complicated, I'll start using the polyline, but I like to keep with the basic geometry first and then backfill with any polylines or anything like that. Something a bit more complex. So I'm going to place a circle in here to start with, and we know the diameter. I'm going to start restraining and constricting these shapes as we go along. So we know the diameter of that is 7. And I'm just going to just place that into place just quickly, and we know this one is 5. Stick some constraints on there. So 5. It's got to sit in there. So what I'm going to do now is just do Control C, and we're selecting this geometry. Control C, and we get a line, and I'm just going to come over to here and click. Now the reason why I do this is because see the equals constraint has appeared, so I've constrained this shape to this shape, so I've constrained at the moment just got the diameter constraint on this, so that's made that same diameter. It means you get less text on the screen, so let's place that in there. So that's good. I'm happy with those shapes in there. They're not 100% correctly placed, but I don't mind that as of yet. We'll go back and do that later. I'm going to now concentrate on these. Now I can see that we can use a slot shape for that, so I'm going to place a slot in here, and I'm going to do a bit more constraining on here, so I just escape to actually get my mouse pointer back so I can move this into place and just manipulate the object a bit. So I'm going to be a bit more accurate with this one. I don't care about this top because this is going to be trimmed off, so this can go right up here. So just placing this in place. Okay, so that's good. And I am going to make a constraint against this I want to lock this into position as much as possible, but I don't want to go too mad. So I'm going to click that part there, that point, and click this line, and I'm going to put a height constraint in there. So that's constrained it to that line, so that shouldn't move up or down, which is good. So that's in position there. It can still move from side to side, so I need to constrain the width of this slot. So I'm going to come into here. I can see this constraint sitting here. This is my other constraint. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Where are you? That one there. So I'm just going to move this off to the side. Remember, you can move those constraints to make it much easier to see what you're doing. So I'm going to use this point here and this point here and place a width constraint in there. So length constraint for the width. And that'll do for that one. Page up and page down to actually zoom out. Arrow keys to move your sketch about. Arrow keys to move your view about so you can see what you're doing. So I've locked that in position now, so let's move that down here. So that point there, if I try moving this, it's kept the same size but it's moving along that line, which I'm quite happy with. I don't mind it moving left and right. Just hit Ctrl Z to actually bring that back. So I can actually copy this now. So I'm going to take that shape, hit Ctrl C, and we can actually move this over to this side here. So the constraints will come with it for this shape, but obviously it won't be constrained along the other axis. So we can just place that in there. And the width is correct. So I'm just going to make sure my mouse pointer is over where I want to zoom. Page up and page down, I can zoom in and get that into position. Happy with that, and I'm going to click the point there, click this line. It's the line of my origin, and I'm going to use a height constraint in there, and that's about it for there. So you can see I've got less constraints showing on this one because we've got equality of constraints for the actual width, etc. Move this in position. You want to be careful of shadowing. You've got a shadow around here where the picture's been taken, so make sure you align this with the edge that is not in shadow. Okay, so now we should have our slots done, and I'm going to box this all off now with the square rectangle geometry. And I know this part is higher than this part, but this will be resolved when we start cutting these parts away. So I am going to get this into position. And what I want to do is put a constraint along this bottom line. So bring it into there. It's about right. And I'm going to put a, let's move out so I can see what we're doing. Length constraint across there, which is okay. And I am going to just move that into position. And that is all good. Now I can also constrain this again because I've got this aligned to this line here, so I could actually line these two together. So I can do that by attaching that point to there. That just moves out on the line. It still can be pushed left and right, but it can't go up and down, which I'm quite happy with for the time being. So I don't want to lock that down just yet. So that's good. So I'm going to start working on these now. So where these intersect, I want to chop the top off and chop the actual line here. So we're going to use our trim and edge. You can come in here and just trim these off and trim this part here. Hit escape. I no longer want that part. Now take a good look at what's happened, because we saw a constraint appear all of a sudden here. So see this constraint here, that's appeared, and if I roll over it you can see this one over here is linked. So it's worth having an adventure and finding out what that constraint is. Now if I move in this left and right, you can see that we've got something going on with this side here. And if I remove this constraint, see what happens now. Put it back. So if I move this up and down, that allows that. If I remove that constraint, now I can move this side up and down. So I don't want that constraint because I actually want those sides to move. So I want to be able to move this side up and down because this side will actually be in line. I'm going to leave those there for the time being, and what I'm going to do is, actually now I'm happy, I'm going to set the length for that side. Move this out, move that one down, and we'll move that one out as well so we can see what we're doing, and that one can go over here as well. Do a few more. That's it. So those are out the way so we can see what we're doing. So constrain the height so that shouldn't move, which is good. Now I'm going to constrain the width here. Okay, that I know I'm going to put a fillet on this side, but we'll get to that in a minute, so that may become redundant in a second. I'm just going to move, see that one moves back and forth. So what I'm going to do is work on here, and I'm going to use the trim tool and remove those sides. that one, press escape and remove the top. And now I can move this down and out of the way if I so desire, but I can't because you've got this constraint here. So if I remove that constraint, we should be able to move that now. So I'm just going to move that in position. Be careful of the shadowing. Come off a bit actually. There we go. So that's moved in position. I can now set the height here. And I want to keep this one horizontal, so I'm going to put a horizontal constraint across there. Let's bring this back. And I'm going to actually put a fixed horizontal distance in there as well, so that doesn't move. As a matter of fact, don't need that. I can actually place a vertical constraint on there, so those will keep in line. That's good. We are getting there. I want to make sure these holes stay where they are, so I'm going to make sure that I am in the right position, these holes. And I'm going to set, oops, let's try setting it with a point, so I'm going to set that in relation to that point there. Set length in there, and also set a height as well. So that shouldn't move, or will move in relation to that. That's good. That's 7.6 millimeters. So I'm going to do the same with this one, making sure we are set in there. Now those holes are on the same line, so I know my 7.6 millimeters, that should be the same with this one. So click the hole, click on the point there, height, so 7.6, and I am going to put a constraint across here, length 411, that'll do. Let's pull those out of the way. And I'm going to do the same with this hole. So this hole, should sit in line. I wonder if it sits in line with these. Go into position and do it to this point. Oops. Do it to this point. So that's 7.9, so it's actually in a different line with the other objects, and I can do a width in there as well, 10.37. So now we have still got some movement back and forth. Control Z. Make sure this one stays vertical. There we go. And we can restrict the width there, but this will actually be removed. I'll do the same here when we start putting the bevels on. Oops. I don't think we needed one for that one. So now that's sliding nicely without any movement in the other parts of geometry. Right, so I want to put a fillet around some of these. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to swap over to my fillet tool. And I'm looking for where the curve starts. So I know the curve starts there and there. And you'll notice that our length restriction has disappeared, because now we've got new lines. And what I'm going to do is I can move these to how I desire. I think that's right, because it looks like there's a bit of damage in there, so I'm not worried about actually retracing that line, or it might be a bit of shadowing, so that's good. I'm going to do the same on this side, looking about there and there, and same for here, there and there. Now I want to constrain this line, because what's going to happen if these move, you can see now we've got some problems. So I'm going to constrain the actual between that point and the actual point of the actual fillet, this point here. I'm going to put length constraint in there. And I'm going to do the same with 2. You see we've got some up and down movement. So when we move in, see we've got some issues. Now if I move this one down, what I want to do is actually match these two, because these are similar. We're not worried about the actual width of that, because that's not what's holding it back. We actually want the depth. And I'm going to make those two equal. That's good. So now we can actually move over to this one and do the same. So I want to fillet that off. Go to our fillet tool. We're just going to fillet this off here. So looking for where that starts and ends. Now because the fillets are on different lines, so this fillet is higher than this one, we need to do some additional constraining in here. So let's have a look what's going on by moving this back and forth. You can see what movement we've got. So I'm going to restrict the depth. And the depth here as well. Okay, so let's zoom out and see what we've got. So I've got no movement in there, which is good. Just got the constrained labels that are flicking back and forth positioning themselves, so that is actually great. So that's good. So that is exactly what I want. Obviously there's other ways of actually doing the constraints in there. I could have constrained the actual depth of this hole to this line, but it's up to you what way you want to do these constraints, what you feel is the best. Always remember that you can actually move them off of our sketch so you can see what you're doing, which is always advisable. And if I wanted to fully constrain this, I actually can put a lock constraint now to lock this in position. And that's it. So that's how you would trace, position, scale and trace an object such as this. So in my next videos I will be doing some more, this is more of a flat object. I'll be looking at doing a more 3D object by taking more pictures of the object itself and scaling across those different images to actually get the desired effect, to actually be able to build that object to a scale from the images only, and then we'll double check that against the object itself. Okay, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe and watch out for new videos. Thanks a lot. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to my site, and also I have a Ko-Fi site. You can actually donate a few pence or a few pounds, dollars, or whatever your currency is, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0, and there you'll be able to help me fund my site, and all the money that I actually get from any funds will actually get pushed back into the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing. I'll see you next time.